When White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles was entering the White House, she was aiming for the West Wing to be a no-drama zone for staff and to keep troublemakers out. But fast forward to today, with President Trump recently firing national security aides following an Oval Office meeting with a far-right activist, and infighting among his closest advisors spilling out into the public. Joining me now, our friend Chris Whipple, journalist, filmmaker, and author. His new book is titled Uncharted: How Trump Beat Biden, Harris, and the Odds in the Wildest Campaign in History. Chris, my friend, welcome. We're going to get to your book in just a moment, but you also wrote a book called The Gatekeepers. That's why we've had you on so often, on previous White House chiefs of staff. How does Susie Wiles compare so far to others you've researched?
Well, you know, the first thing that Susie Wiles did, among the first things, was to call the quintessential White House chief, James A. Baker III, who was Ronald Reagan's chief back in the day. And Baker told her what he tells everyone else who takes that job, which is, congratulations, you've got the worst blanking job in Washington. She has that job, but now multiply that by 10 with Donald Trump. We should not be surprised by the chaos when it comes to policy that we're seeing here, because there's no new Trump. Trump 2.0 is essentially the same as Trump 1.0, with more enablers around him. But there is a difference in the White House. You don't see the same backstabbing and kneecapping and internecine warfare and leaking going on. And that's largely due to Susie Wiles, I think.
You have Elon Musk and Peter Navarro, though, who've had a pretty public spat the last few weeks at least. What effect could any sort of animosity like we're seeing have on getting work actually done at the White House?
Nobody said it would be easy for Susie Wiles. She's got to deal with these larger-than-life personalities. You know, Trump went over the cliff with Navarro on tariffs, because Navarro's a nutcase when it comes to tariffs, and he enables Trump's, most extreme instincts. Then the bond market blows up, and Musk and Susie and the others have to kind of reel them back in. That's the way it goes.
Okay, let's get to your new book with an inside look at the 2024 campaign and that infamous Biden debate moment, which ultimately led to his dropping out as the Democratic nominee. Talk about what happened in the days after, which led to the vice president becoming the nominee.
Well, what's really extraordinary about the book, Alex, I think, is we all know it was the wildest campaign in history. Behind closed doors, it was wilder and stranger than you can imagine. And I have the story you can't read anywhere else of the days right up to the debate, when Ron Klain was preparing Biden, or trying to, at Camp David. And it was really a kind of fiasco. And yet they went ahead with the debate. And during the debate, Biden's inner circle, they thought he was winning it. I mean, they were lost in a kind of fog of delusion and denial, believing their so-called dial groups, focus groups, more than their common sense. And of course, I tell this whole story day by day, hour by hour, those final days when before Biden dropped out. It's a Shakespearean story with betrayals that ends in tragedy, including Biden's belief that Barack Obama had betrayed him, and you'll find out why.
Kamala Harris's run was certainly abbreviated, less than 4 months as the Democratic presidential nominee. What sticks out to you, Chris, about her strategy during that time?
Well, one thing that sticks out to me, and I tell the story in Uncharted, is the real sort of inside story of what happened in that infamous moment when she was on ABC's The View. And she couldn't answer that question about what she would do differently from Joe Biden. She said, I can't think of a single thing. And that was a real turning point of the campaign. I mean, within hours, the Trump campaign had an ad up that was devastating. The story of why she couldn't answer that question is a really good one.
Okay. It's extraordinary. Can you give me one nugget from Paul Manafort, like in 10 seconds, because I'm going to have to go, what he told you about the Trump campaign?
Paul Manafort, a great story, because he was working under the radar for Trump. And on that fateful weekend of July 20th, he emailed me and he said, Biden will be out by Monday. I said,
wow. You're going to tell the story in the book.
Somehow he thought so.
Well, he did. Chris Whipple, thank you so much.